And Corla, finally getting up, and thank you, Minister. First of all, can I say that I was pleased to hear the response of Minister Donoghue today when he talked about adjusting the temporary wage subsidy for women who return from maternity leave in March or April. I think that's a really important step, and I'm glad that while we still don't know the detail, but that you are taking it. I did ask him further about the extension of maternity leave, and I know that's not his bailiwick. I think it's the Minister for Justice, but it is a whole-of-government approach. And I would say, Minister, there are lots of good reasons to look at this. You've heard them today. I don't need to go back on them again, but I would ask you, if this is part of your discussions, to please try to make the case that this is a good solution on many different levels. I asked Minister Donoghue as well this morning about sole traders who are over 66, who cannot access the pandemic unemployment payment and who can't access the temporary wage scheme, subsidy scheme. Whereas if you are over 66 and you're employed, you can access the latter, the temporary wage subsidy scheme. And of course, if you're under 66, you can access both. So you have three different situations there, which depend basically on two things: your birthday, and secondly, whether you're a sole trader or whether you're employed. Is there any way, Minister, that this anomaly can be dealt with, that gap, if you like, could be filled? I'll take an answer to that question first, please. Thank you.
The first point you raised, Deputy, was on maternity leave. You'd be daft not to see the merits. Of course I see the merits, and I will certainly make representations as has been asked of me, so that's no problem. I actually thought we had filled the gap with regard to the over 66 as sole traders, because the reason we couldn't include them in the COVID payment is because the working age entitlements that the legislation governs employment assistance and benefits runs from age 18 to age 66. So anybody else that falls out of those categories, as our sole traders over 66 or our young workers under 18, are being helped by the legislation that governs the supplementary welfare allowance. And anybody that finds themselves that have extra expenses over and above their €243 of a pension can absolutely make application to that supplementary welfare system.
Minister, I also want to bring to your attention the issue of victims of domestic violence, and we've spoken about this before in the Chamber. And first of all, can I thank you for your good and ongoing work with Safe Ireland on streamlining the referral process. That's really important. It's been very useful, and I know your department is liaising with Safe Ireland on an ongoing basis. But the issue, that's the first part of it, if you like. But then the second part is the fact that the emergency rent supplement is, of course, it's means tested. And we're all well aware that if somebody, man or woman, is in a position to be a victim of domestic violence, that's all about power and about control, and very often it's about financial control. So while there may be some possibility around supplementary welfare, etc., that's not nearly enough for somebody to put down a deposit and to try and rent a place for a month, 2 months, 3 months. So people are prisoners in their own home. So my question to you, and you're the expert here, I'm just asking the question is there any way or mechanism that an individual can be assessed in their own right, means tested in their own right for this, not looking at family income, etc., or some other way that would allow victims of domestic violence to access that scheme in a timely way? Thank you.
So thanks, Marian, and I know you know that we've had 2 meetings with Safe Ireland and other representative bodies in the last number of weeks, and I think the progress is working well, and I'll continue to make sure that we do that. The streamlining the process is the key to us making sure that we're responsive to people, and the first instance that we're doing is absolutely putting people in emergency accommodation and paying for that emergency accommodation for 2 weeks so that we can get them a stream of income that is sustainable. Now, for some people that will be rent supplement, and actually we've totally relaxed the means, and so we've relaxed the conditionality over the last couple of weeks, and for some people that absolutely is the way to go. But for lots of people it's not the way to go. So for lots of people the way to go is the supplementary welfare, and that isn't just a once-off payment, it is a continuing payment for as long as people need it, and that's going to be the route that we'll use for some people. But I think the most important thing that we've agreed over the last number of weeks with Safe Ireland is that there's no one-size-fits-all. Anybody that presents as a single woman or as a woman with her family, the circumstances are different, and we will respond to that family or that lady with regard to the circumstances that she presents with us. But we will always be accommodating, empathetic and supportive, and I think that's the most important thing we can do.
Thank you, Minister. And again, I think this is all about flexibility. I'm not sure at what stage your negotiations are at the moment, but if you tell me that you're willing to show that flexibility and find solutions for people who are in different situations, but awful situations, I'm happy to take you at your word. My last is more a comment, and perhaps asking you, since I still have 2 minutes left, about some issues that were raised by my colleague Deputy O'Donoghue a few moments ago, and you responded about the £6 billion loans that are being given to small businesses. One of my questions relates to the fact that not all small businesses paid rates last year. For example, if you have a school bus, if you're a school bus operator, you may well not have paid rates last year. So how do you look at making the necessary adjustments to your bus without any assistance? So is there anything there in the pipeline or in existence for companies who didn't pay rates but who need to make adjustments in order to be ready when their phase of exiting the lockdown comes? And the other issue is around the fact that businesses who've lost 25% or more of their turnover can apply for different loans and grants. I would also say, Minister, there's a small number of businesses who've probably lost 15, 20, 22% of their turnover. And while that's good news for them, nonetheless it means their profitability has gone through the floor. So they may be just breathing, just holding on, but they don't make any money, and many of them are holding on to their employees. So I know it's hard to taper off that kind of benefit to companies, but if it's possible at all, if there's anything that could be done on a sliding scale, because if we're in this together, then we try to be fair to everybody. So if you could keep those two things in mind, Minister.
Thank you very much, You'll keep them in mind, Minister.
Sorry, well, just to very briefly, just to reassure the Deputy that our department officials, when anybody's health and well-being is in danger or their safety is at risk, the department officials have discretionary powers that they can work outside of the normal rules that we would have. Now, as I know I said, we have relaxed rules with regard to rent supplement, but just to reassure you that any department official that's dealing with a lady that finds herself in that awful situation, we will use whatever is at our gift to make sure that we look after them and to keep them safe. So just to reassure you. And yes, there are some anomalies, and I think in some of the health or the benefits that we've introduced for businesses in the last number of weeks that are quite glaring. The people who don't pay rates, the man, the woman in the van who do actually employ other people, I think is one obvious one. You've just said a second one. I will relay her concerns back to the Minister tomorrow at Cabinet.